Sir. Hope everybody's doing well today. We have a long agenda, so we might as well just jump right into the action items. First are the information only items. Are there any comments or questions from the committee related to those? Hearing and seeing none. I had none either, so we'll go ahead and move into the abstracts. The first of which is for adult ed. Ms. Benora.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you. Happy June. Couple of things I'm here to present today. So I'll start in the order that we're on the agenda. The first abstract is for our state funding or state grant that New Haven Adult Education receives yearly. This basically funds most of our entire program, or what we call mandated programs, to provide the citizens of this great city with GED, high school diploma, and ESL learning opportunities. So this includes the budget for our entire staff, the lease payments that we're currently making due, all of our instructional supplies, professional development, etc. We're lucky enough that the state has increased our allocation, not from last year, but from 2 years ago, with the increase in rent that I know this committee is very familiar with that we're paying. That will at least help reduce the burden of that cutting into some of our instructional courses.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? I had none either. That is kind of them to provide the extra funding. That's extremely helpful. Let's go ahead and talk about number 2, which is the enhancement project.
Great. So there's 2 grants under the enhancement project. We call it PEP. These are federal funds and used to supplement some of the more creative programs that we get to offer to our students and city residents. The first one, in the amount of $110,000, covers our transition to post-secondary program. So that's how we offer gateway classes on-site at adult education. Also offer a workforce readiness and employment counseling program through these funds, as well as an extended national external diploma program, which is an alternative route to earning a high school diploma made for working adults. So these funds specifically carry or supplement some of those activities.
All right, and that was for items number 2 and number 3?
Number 3 is the PEP grant for IELC. So that's Integrated English Language Arts, Civics, and Workforce Training. And this is where students in our ESOL program specifically earn citizenship skills as well as medical careers training. So this year, we're proud to say that we're graduating 16 students with CNA licenses. They're all set and ready to go and highly employable. So that's the funding that we use to cover that expense.
Most excellent. Any comments or questions on those 2 items? All right. Thank you. And it looks like number 4 is Literacy Volunteers of Greater New Haven, also Ms. Benora.
Yeah, so New Haven Adult Ed, or the Board of Education, serves as a pass-through for literacy volunteers. They receive state funding to support their mission of literacy in adult learners. And this little bit of money is just part of their budget, but covers part of their administrative costs.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Ms. Hannons.
Yes, Michelle, hi.
Hi, Linda.
Just real quick, these agreements, I mean, these abstracts, excuse me, I gotta get back on track here. These abstracts, have you received the award, or are you just basing these on last year's numbers?
The official award has not been received yet, but this is the time of year we typically put these in.
Okay.
Because we'll start spending on July 1.
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask that, Pat, for the board agenda, that you put a pending receipt of funds on all of these.
And Linda, it was mentioned at our state meeting on Friday that the state, at least for these funds, the federal funds, not the big grant, but is going to a reimbursement model. I'm sure your office is familiar with that. That's not the main grant, but the federal grant is going to be a reimbursement model. So you won't be in receipt of the funds until we spend them.
No, that's okay. But what I'm saying is that when I was online today looking for something else, I didn't see any 23, 24 awards out there.
Right.
So that's why when I saw your things early, and these are the same numbers that I had for this fiscal year, I just wanted to make sure that these grants, you didn't receive them and we just didn't see them.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
so
what-
Pat, if you could just put pending receipt of funds on on the agendas for the, make those corrections.
So
Will do.
what Michelle had said is important for all of us here to listen to. All the federal grants and things that we receive, now we have to front load the spending and then we get reimbursed. They're no more going to award us as they have done before, Linda.
Mhm.
Something I had sent around to everybody that came that we have to spend the money up front and then we get reimbursed for what is spent. So there's some changes in what they're doing. So we may
Okay.
not receive an award letter.
No, I'm not talking, I'm saying I went online and
Yeah, I know. I hear
the
you.
award letter, they put it online, whether the award letter has nothing to do with the drawdowns.
For the drawdown, okay.
Yeah, I went in looking for the application and the amount, but now, now that you're saying that, I think we need to make it clear that if that's the case, we can't operate on a reimbursement basis. We get, I mean, where would we get the cash from?
That's a
That
problem.
would be a serious blow
Yes.
to the city of New Haven. We can't
Yes.
afford that.
I know.
The city doesn't have any money to upfront, because they work based on the, their tax revenue and stuff. So if this goes to a reimbursement basis, that's going to be a serious blow to the district.
Yep. So let's probe a little bit more about that, Lynn.
Okay, no
Mm.
problem. Thank you for letting me know.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Any more on this item? Hearing and seeing nothing, thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and talk about abstract number 5, which is for the school readiness grant. Is Ms. Augustine Jefferson available or someone else that can speak to this item?
Where are we, number 5?
Number 5. I mean, my understanding is this is the big state grant for the school readiness program, which is the one that where the New Haven
Oh, okay.
where we fund slots at various preschool programs. Is that
Correct.
this is the big one for that, right?
Mhm.
I was glad to see these because I said, oh, great, they're all done. We haven't received the award yet, to my knowledge, but at least the agreements will be, have gone through the board and through A&F, which will then allow us to pay the providers in a more timely fashion. So,
All right. And then number 6 is for the school readiness quality enhancement grant. Much smaller, but
yes.
what's that one for? Does anybody have the information? I don't
That
recall.
If I'm not mistaken, that the quality enhancement, we use that to upgrade the programs that they are running in the district in conjunction with the school readiness programs.
Yeah, I
And
guess
they'll have like consultants and things come in and check on. I'm not sure. I could pull the abstract.
I'm looking at it now. Resources.
Got it? Okay.
Includes the workshops on site and virtual
Yeah.
education, mental health consultation.
Yep.
Access to an early childhood library.
Mhm.
So, all right, supplemental stuff for that program. Any comments or
Correct.
questions related to these two?
Just to comment again,
Okay.
Pat, those need to be pending receipt of funds as well.
Right,
'Cause
got it.
none of these grants have come in.
right.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and move into the agreements. The first one, number 1C1, is an amendment to the agreement with Higher Heights Youth Empowerment. Is Ms. Stevens, or I guess I see.
Yeah, I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So from my understanding, it was just an amendment to this agreement going from 38 weeks to 27 weeks with no change in the total funding of $31,000.
I see. All right. Any comments or questions related to this? And do you know, was this just a clerical error or
I believe so,
change in the
calculation.
program?
Yeah, I think there was a calculation error when originally figuring the hours in weeks.
Comments or questions? All right. Thank you, sir. We'll go
Thank
ahead and move on to number 2, which is an agreement with Curriculum Associates, which does have a funding amount. Ms. Red Hannons.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So this is our agreement with Curriculum Associates. They are the company that we're using for our math curriculum, K-5 and introducing in grades 6 to 8. This is part of the professional development plan. As you can recall, I've talked about having consultants make New Haven feel like we're their only client. And they're achieving this through this agreement. It's such that they are providing job embedded coaching for our district. We will have a coach on site in our schools 4 days a week for 34 weeks that will be providing on the ground, real time coaching support to our teachers, our principals. In addition to that, we also have professional development sessions that we've also purchased for whether it's the district math department or school teams as well.
All right. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for guiding the continued development of math. This particular agreement is for personnel, and the purchase order coming at the end of the meeting is for software.
The Curriculum Associate, yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions related to this? I had none. So we'll go ahead and move on to number 3, an agreement with Southern for certified nursing assistant training. Also Ms. Red Hannons or Ms. Natalino.
I'll let Ms. Natalino, I think she's on, she can speak to it.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So the Southern CNA agreement, we are looking to expand our career opportunities for our high school students. We all know that the healthcare field is in need. Been working closely with Yale New Haven Hospital, and there is a need for over 300 CNAs. So we are offering a summer program. This one is through Southern. We originally started with Gateway and realized the need was so big, we needed 2 universities. And so over 1 month, over the course of the summer, students will finish in August with their CNA cert, and Yale will be ready to hire them upon completion of this program.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I only have a comment that I think these are great programs when students can get out of New Haven Public Schools, not only with a high school diploma, but also job certification. And those things I think are just very much an extra key thing in this world. So
Thank you, Ms.
appreciate the
Wilcox. I
expansion
agree.
of this program and more opportunities for students. I don't recall the one with Gateway. Is it a similar number of students? 30?
So Gateway said they could take up to 12 students for the CNA. The 30 is for the Southern teaching, which I'll talk
Okay.
about. I know that's on the agenda as well.
Okay.
And I believe Southern is taking up to 27. So we'll have close to 40 students, but there was a list of, there's a lot of interest. So we're hoping to continue this in the fall. We're piloting with the group in the summer. And then the hope is that we'll rerun the program in the fall as well.
And I'll just continue to advocate just in general. I think it'd be great if there was a place on the website where we could just see all the different programs at all the different schools that are similar in nature in terms of certification, job training, trade programs, etc. I get requests from that periodically, including from at least one alder who would like to see it. So I know people are working on that, and I think that'd be great. Okay, we'll go ahead and talk about number 4, an agreement with Pediatric Services of America. Ms. Jackson.
Hi, how are you? This is a longstanding contract that we have with the vendor to service our students who require individualized nursing support in order for us to be able to have them access their services. So again, this right now is 2 students that require full-time nursing support.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this item? I had none either. You said it was for 2 students, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to number 5, agreement with Autism Health and Fitness Center. Ms. Jackson?
Yeah. Yep. That is, we provide for our students, those who are in our specialized programs, again, for our children who have significant cognitive impairments and autism spectrum disorders. We contract with this vendor to provide adaptive physical education for them, starting in our extended school year programs over the summer and then throughout the year at various locations.
All right. Comments or questions? I had none either. Let's talk about number 6, an agreement with Tiffany Beach.
That is a contract for individualized speech and language support for our students, again, mandated by way of their IEP. I come every year talking about the fact that speech and language pathology, far greater than any teacher shortage that you've seen, is an area of need where we are reliant on contractors enough to be able to provide mandated services for our students.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions? I had none either. We'll go on to number 7, an agreement with District Arts and Education. And this is Ms. Red Hannons or Mr. Mendia.
Yes, so I'll go ahead and present on this one. So we're excited about this. This is a new venture for us as we're expanding our partnership with DAE. DAE currently takes our 11th and 12th graders and exposes them to web design, development, and as they're expanding in their services, we also want to, 1, enhance our curriculum, but 2, get more students interested in the web development, web design field. So this is a summer program for students in grades 8 to 10 to focus on coding, web development, robotics, and the projects that our students that are in DAE that they put on at the end of their time in DAE has been absolutely wonderful. And so we want more students interested, whether it's video game design or just learning how to navigate the internet and web development.
All right. Comments or questions? I had none either. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and talk about number 8, an agreement with Cheryl Sadinsky. Ms. Augustine Jefferson, is she on?
It will be on shortly. If we can jump over, because I know she has a number of items.
Yes.
I just spoke with her. If we could jump over to someone else's items and then come back, she'll be on real shortly.
All right, so make a note of that. So we're gonna skip for now items 8. Let's see, 8 through 18.
She's coming in now.
She's coming in now. Should we wait 1 minute then? Why don't we go ahead?
Sorry, I forgot. Okay.
All right, well, we have several listed as you. First one of which is an agreement with Cheryl Sadinsky for weekly on-site virtual support to school readiness funded programs.
Right. So she provides coaching support for school readiness. She currently works for us now, and they're just extending that to next year.
All right.
Or, right. Oops.
All right. Comments or questions related to this one? All right, I had none either. So with 9, looks like 9 starts of several of the school readiness spaces.
Right. School readiness, Shubhra Gupta, unfortunately, she resigned. She took another job, and she was wanting to make sure those contracts got in early enough. So those 9 contracts will be for various providers of school readiness. And the amounts are based on the slots that they've been allocated. And those are ones that are, those are just probably the full years programs.
All right, and as a reminder, these are all, the groups are selected by the New Haven
Early Childhood Council, it, oversees the work around the School Readiness Grant, and they approve slots allocation and send that off to the state, and then the state approves that as well.
And the state approves a same amount per student for each of these, and what changes is the number of student slots.
Right, exactly.
that
It's the
they're
same
gonna award.
reimbursement rate. 6,000 if you're school day, 4,500 if you're part day, and about 9,000 or so if you're full day, full year.
All right, and this covers 9 with Catholic Charities,
Right.
Creative ME, Friends
Right.
Center for Children, LULAC, Montessori on Edgewood, All Our Children, St. Aidan's Preschool Center, St. Andrews Child Care Center, Central Connecticut Coast YMCA, and Yale New Haven Hospital Daycare Center.
Right.
So, all right, any comments or questions related to any of these? All right, I had none, so we'll go ahead and go to number 19, which is the agreement with Connecticut Children's Museum. Also, Ms. Augustine Jefferson.
Okay, that would be another School Readiness site.
I'm sorry, but this is listed as to house and operate the New Haven Early Childhood Resource Center for New Haven.
Okay, Resource Center, right? So they use some of their QE money quality enhancement monies to support quality, and one way is to support that resource center. So they get additional monies, not the slot money. They have additional monies that they're paying that out of.
Got it. And that was the abstract that we looked at earlier in the meeting. Comments or questions related to this one? All right, I had none either. So thank you very much. We'll go ahead and talk about another agreement number 3 to an agreement with Arte. Ms. Joseph Lumpkin.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe you're muted.
And Christian Tavares is here to support me. I am actually on a vacation day today, but as Dr. Tracy and I talked, we are never really on vacation. I knew a lot of information was going through as we kicked off our summer of fun. And I wanted to support Christian in his presentation of these agreements. So Christian, you want to kick off with, kick off with Arte, and I'll comment later on.
Yes. Cox, could you remind me if that's the agreement or the amendment with Arte?
This is the agreement, the amendment.
The number 20 is the amendment number 3 to the agreement with Arte for a carnival that happened yesterday.
Apologies.
Yesterday, yes. So this amendment was just to support Stream Carnival that we had over at Clinton Avenue School, and from what we've heard, it was a great success and provide amazing programming to both the youth and the students. To the students and the families all together. Excited to have them part of the team, and we're looking forward to just share that information with the rest of the board.
All right, comments or questions related to this? I only commented probably better for us to see it before it happens than after it happens. Since the amendments and agreements, these are things we approve, so that's one comment, but this is only a $3,500 increase. So, all right. We'll go on to number 21, which is an agreement with Arte for summer activity enrichment programs.
Yeah, so continuing on with our summer of fun, the same in the year, working with both students and families throughout the summer. Arte will be providing that same programming and expanding the scope of work to actually include more sessions that they did last year. It was a good success last that opportunity to the rest of our families for the remainder for a longer amount of time during this.
I think you're breaking up.
Yeah, you are breaking up a little bit.
Here.
So I think it probably, since we're going to start with several of these for the Summer of Fun programs, if we could just have the reminder, or, the standard reminder of the RFQ process, how these groups are selected, what the process looks like, since that's going to probably apply to all of these.
So we post to our website and to our community partners the fact that these RFQs are open. We try to send it as broadly as possible. We send it to the United Way, to all the community-based organizations that we have relationships with, and some whom we do not. We then call for a meeting to happen prior to the final date of the final due date of the RFQ. We meet with the providers, in a sense, as bidders, and share as much information as possible about the process. We follow up with office hours that we have them schedule at ours and their convenience to answer additional questions. We require completion of the RFQs. That is followed by a committee that scores the RFQs based on rubrics that we send to partners, and that's part of the package. And we go through a selection process from there.
All right, thank you. So any comments or questions related to the agreement with Arte? Dr. Yarbrough.
Thank you. Yes, just a comment. I appreciate the data, the survey information about 2022 respondents, just commenting on their experience of the program, both from, it looks like, the participants and then also from parents. And I appreciate that you gave the number of respondents as well as the percentage breakdown for the different things. So thank you very much for helping, I guess, to establish in my mind a track record of how they're being received by our community that continues to support their development, but also our partnership with Arte. So thank you very much for providing that.
Thank you for that. And one of the things about this agreement, most of our work during the summer is geared towards students and student enrichment. This is one of our unique opportunities where we focus on supporting students and their families, especially on the weekends. These events occur, they occur across, but there are often several opportunities for families to join in on these activities on Saturdays and Sundays.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to number 22, which is an agreement with Boy Scouts of America.
Yes, so continuing with our Summer of Fun initiative, we brought back the Boy Scouts because it's just every summer with our students, like, going to the outdoors and just experiencing the programming that they have out in. This year they'll be going to Camp Redding in Connecticut, a little further up, but main program is STEM Robotics Summer Camp, where students will be doing a lot of hands-on learning and towards that K-6 population.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Is this a new program? Thank you. Is this a new program from last summer? And I'm just curious if there's a change in the number of participants we're expecting, the rate. I know you said the location is different.
Sorry. Yes, it is the same program. What it was is an increase. We're actually taking on 300 students opposed to 150 that we took on last year. So we doubled the amount of students that were serviced.
With a waiting list.
Okay. So this is in response to signups.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
And we have a relationship with the Boy Scouts as well.
Ms. Hannons, you had a comment? You're muted.
Okay. Kristen, just a question, because I'm looking at the funding source. Can you just tell me a little bit more about the STEM robotics and how does that meet the academic requirements of Title I?
Yes, of course. So robotics actually incorporate a lot of the mathematic components. So they do a lot of like hands-on projects engage them within the mathematics. I don't want to say calculus, but is a more easier the stuff that they actually are involved with that are more grade appropriate, and they actually projects and apply them out into the field when they're actually doing a lot of the outdoors work as well.
Okay.
And
So
this
there
is
will-
a national curriculum, Ms. Hannons, that we can also make available to you that is aligned to academic enrichment. So it is work outside, it is academic enrichment that cannot be replicated within the classroom. This type of enrichment happens outdoors in the mode of what some would describe as play, interactive, hands-on activity that supports learning in the classroom.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to number 23, an agreement with Clifford Beers for Camp Farnham.
Farnham. So same initiative as the Camp Farnham fun camp that we had last year. Increasing the number of students that are actually participating in the camp last year after the successful summer that we had with them, up to more students. And from what we were told, they're actually already filled up for the summer with the 150 provided to them. So there's currently a wait list for the Clifford Beers Fun Camp, and we're just hoping to continue.
And this, of course, they have a list, and everyone knows that's pending board approval.
Comments or questions related to this? Ms. Hannons, your hand's up. Is that from
Yeah.
last time or?
Yeah, I forgot something after I asked the question. On item number, the Boy Scouts of America, you need to change the funding source to 5265 because this is going against Title I. And since it's new fiscal year, we haven't received funds for new fiscal year, so you have to change the funding source to Title I carryover.
Will do.
Okay, so to just switch it around, it should be 5265 and then put carryover after it.
Got it.
Will do, Ms. Hannons.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for the Clifford Beers Camp Farnham, any comments or questions related to that? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to number 24, agreement with Monk Center.
Another returning partner from our summer fun. We actually are providing them with a couple extra slots for their summer, and they will be doing a lot of STEM programming as well as along with the visual programming that they are known for. So we just want to open this up to more students and families as well for the summer.
All right, I'll note, it looks like there's a typo. It refers to, it's for 33 students, grades 18. I don't think we have a grade 18. I'm assuming that's grades 1 through 8. Would that be
Through 8.
correct?
Is it? Yeah.
I didn't know if you all were hiding in 18th grade.
Wondering about that.
Was that in the first sentence?
It's in the first sentence. It's in the basic description. Right after the number of students, it says grades 18.
I do have it corrected on my end, so I'll be sure to resend it.
Could just be incorrect online, but more importantly, want to correct on the thing going before the board.
It's not the attachment, but the short list of all the agreements.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, the dash is on the contract, but not on the
Okay.
short list.
If there's nothing else on this one, we'll go on to number 25, an agreement with Ready Incorporated.
All right, Ready, another returning summer fun partner who services a lot based out of Hill House, grades 5 through 12. He'll be taking on a total of 150 and just exposing them to a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities and just a lot of opportunities as well. So it's just exposing them to various opportunities where they can just continue to grow and enhance their opportunities to become young professionals out in the field.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? I had none either. Let's go ahead and talk about number 26, agreement with Justice Education Center.
And again, another returning our summer of fun who usually services our 7th through 12th graders. going to be a total as well that actually are based out of Hill House. Again, a big focus on learning, social justice, and just a lot of restorative practice work as well. So we just tap into those high-risk students that usually appeal to this program and just keep them engaged to avoid any conflict out in the community.
All right. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, just a question. It's related to these as a group. I wonder if there's some parity between so the goal of my question is to see that that our vendors that we're partnering with are being paid for what they're providing and maybe not being underpaid. So do we have a sense that we're paying people appropriately the same for what they do? And I guess if they're using extra equipment, maybe they get more. The reason I'm asking is in part because I don't have everything lined up in front of me. So I'm trying to do the math and the calculations. Okay, 30 students, full day. I don't necessarily know how many staff they are providing. But when I look at the information provided under the question of what would be an alternative contractor cost, it says between $400 and $800 per child per week, and that's a big range. But I don't know what actually would cause the $400 side of that range versus the $800 side of that range. Do we have confidence that we are paying our vendors well for the service they're providing us?
I would say that we work very closely with our partners to be reasonable, understanding we are a low-resourced school district. The comparison that you see is what individual families who have the funding capacity to pay full-blown for these projects. We work with our vendors to have discussions about the large number of students that we often bring to the table, guaranteed. And yes, to make sure that our negotiations and our conversations and our ultimate agreements does not put them in a bind. Yes, our costs are generally lower than market rate. I would certainly admit to that. But we definitely try to be fair and reasonable in a way where we're not putting the vendors in the hole for this work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. I also have just a general question related to all of these summer of funds, and that is, am I remembering correctly that this is the last summer that we'll have availability of ESSER 2 money for this?
Yes.
It's the last summer for ESSER 2, but ARP ESSER extends to September 30th, 2024.
So there's a good chance that we might have enhanced summer planning as well for next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Red Hannons. I appreciate hearing
I'm
that.
sure you're happy to hear that, Ms. Joseph Luckett.
I think we're all happy to hear that. So that's great. All right. If there's nothing else on this item, let's go ahead and move on to number 27, which is an agreement with, looks like Sergeant First Class Rodriguez for ROTC at Hill House. Mr. Sweeting.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Hello. Maybe you could just give us an overview. It looks like number 27 is with Sergeant First Class Rodriguez and 28 is with Captain Sala. Maybe you could talk about these two individuals and their role in the ROTC program at Hill House.
Junior ROTC has a strong commitment to the students of Hill House and to the community of New Haven, enhancing student skills in interviewing practices, citizenship, leadership, etc. They've extended themselves to more than 100+ hours in community service. They've been involved at Youth at Work, athletics and partnership programs, CPR, etc. They are heavily involved in how Hill House communicates with guests, etc. Some of the students are engaged in active listening skills, public speaking. Most times they are engaged in mediation skills, empathy and understanding as team members in ROTC. They're building long-lasting leadership relationships with fellow students, etc. So as far as the Hill House community and the New Haven community in general, Junior ROTC has had two great leaders at the helm in Officer Rodriguez and Officer Sala, and we would hope to continue this partnership.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this or these two items? I had none either. Just will note that as it's listed in the agenda here that it is roughly half funded by the U.S. Army and the other half out of operating funds. So not only sounds like a good program, it's a good deal. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, just technical. I'm looking at the first page of the document for Rodriguez. And the effective dates are July 2022 to June 2023. But the funding sources for 23-24 school year, is that correct or should?
Tonight, there's an arrow.
It's an error.
Okay.
We'll have it corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention to detail, Doctor.
I'm trying. So these
No,
things go through.
You succeeded. You succeeded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's often if it involves a number, Dr. Yarbrough is on it. That's for sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sweeting. And we'll go ahead and move on to item 29, which is the agreement with Advanced Office System. Is Ms. Herrera here or?
Ms. Herrera is not here. I'm going to be addressing this to the committee.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So good evening to everyone. So this is the agreement with Advanced Office Systems, Inc. for desktop support from July 1st of 23 through June 30th of 24 in the amount not to exceed $516,672. This is an agreement that went out to RFP and is the first renewal of the contract. The renewal has an increase of $39,744, representing an 8% increase over previous year. This is for all of the staff that support the IT department with desktop support functions.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? All right. I had none either. Let's go ahead and talk about number 31. I'm sorry, 30, which is an amendment to the agreement with Bertram Moses.
Thank you very much. This is the first amendment and only amendment to Bertram and Moses for providing legal special education services to the district. We are seeking an amendment in the amount of $19,000 to bring this contract through the end of the year. This will support invoices and funding for the months of May and June. And I see Tim has some comments to add as well.
Comments or questions for this? Oh, please, Ms. Jackson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilcox, one thing I just want to make sure, just to mention, because I just want to make sure that it's represented. There's not been an increase in special education legal costs, but this contract with Bertram Moses, they've also handled some legal matters that again have gone above and beyond just what we see from our other legal services. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that folks know that we utilize Bertram as it's written for special education services, but they also handle a lot more litigation matters. for the district.
Right. If I remember correctly, we have two agreements with them. Typically, one is for special education and one is for general legal.
Yes.
Yes,
So-
and general legal will be the next item.
Right. So this increase of 19,000 is for the special education service legal.
Correct, for this fiscal year.
Right. Okay. Comments or questions related to this? My question would just be, we did several of these a couple, maybe 2 months ago. I'm just assuming, are these ongoing legal services, or were these not known at that time when we were handling all the others?
They're ongoing, and I could tell you just from my end that some of the litigation of the services, I think one of the things that we're going to have to do is separate them out, because even like I said, again, what you see by way of increase is not, it are matters that have been happening throughout the year, and some are just getting litigated. But I think what you're seeing is also a crossover of some litigation matters that probably should be in the other contract.
So the big one we had given Matt was for Shipman and Goodwin.
Right, I understand. I think we did a big one for that. I'm trying to remember if we did it for one of the others.
No, we didn't.
No.
Okay.
There was no other amendments for any other firm except for Shipman and Goodwin.
Okay, well, my question is based on this is, since we have for this year 2 contracts with Birch and Moses, is this an additional 19,000, or is just this could be allocated to the general legal services contract or agreement with them?
This is an additional 19,000 to the special education legal services contract.
Right, but what I'm hearing here is that there might be some things that have been charged to the special education one that are, I don't know how strict the definitions are and what separates out legal special education services versus general legal services.
Right. Matt, I think that the contract as is, the way that it was broadly written, initially, I think it allows for us to be able to have those services there. I just don't, the only reason why I chimed in is because I want to make sure, just because we're public, that there's not been an increase in litigation within special education, but the way that the contract has been written, those things would be able to be covered this year. And then we just, what I'm saying internally for next year, we'll have to just try to make sure that we're parsing it out so then we truly could look at, what is an actual, litigation and general litigation versus special education if we want to track that.
Okay. My suggestion is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll work with Tiffany to create clarity on ensuring that things are appropriated to the correct contract.
All right. I also think every fall we look at a report of legal service costs for the previous fiscal year, what the final amounts were by company and by contract. So that also might be a time maybe to point out if general legal is under budget and now the special education contract is being increased, just maybe it ends up being just a wash. But okay. Anything else on this item? All right, so let's go ahead and we'll deal with 31 and 32 together because they're both with the same company. The Birch and Moses we've been talking about. One is for general legal services and the other is for general legal special education services.
Correct. So this is the continuation of the previous conversation for next fiscal year, which is the 23-24 school year for general legal services for Bircham and Moses, and for legal general special education legal services for Bircham and Moses, not to exceed 80,000 for the special education services and not to exceed 50,000 for general.
Okay. Comments or questions related to these 2 items? So just the previous item is for an amendment for the current year, and then this is for these 2 contracts with this one company for next year. All right. Hearing and seeing none. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about items 33 and 34, both of which are with Shipman and Goodwin, one for labor relations and the other for CHRO Legal Services.
So item number 33 is a little different than what we've done in the past. This is specific to labor relations litigation. Because we have some pending items in litigation, this is a carryover for those items. We will be moving forward with having the district attorney for employee relation matters. And that person will pick up a lot of these tasks and work alongside Shipman and Goodwin so that we'll be able to resolve these issues in a different way than we have previously. Shipman and Goodwin, being a great firm, has served us well. However, having a resource internally will benefit us immensely.
All right, comments or questions for these two items? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, just a clarifying question. This specific labor relations agreement is something we have not had recently, so it's not a renewal, but it is a new kind of new relationship with them, given the hire we intend to make.
Being that this is professional services, the contracts do not typically go out for bid. However, we do have several employee relation matters that are currently in litigation that this contract will be utilized for.
Got it.
Dr. Tracy?
Tom, could I ask a question? Because I thought we had asked that these be pulled until we have certain things settled, because we know we did a big agreement with the Board of Alders for Shipman and Goodwin for litigation costs not too long ago, up into thousands of dollars, correct?
That was only for this fiscal year.
Only for this fiscal year.
And that covered the negotiations with all of the unions.
So are we using this as a binder until we find a labor relations person? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Oh, okay, get it. Okay.
And then any carryover that we have that's ongoing right now.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Hannon, do you have your hand up on this?
Oh, yeah. Question, Tom, once we hire the labor lawyer, this 80,000 may be reduced at some point. We will have a savings in here.
We can look at what the needs of the district are and reduce the contract accordingly.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, and we don't think we're going to come back for a change order.
I hope not.
I'm sorry. I hope not. I hope not. Okay, that's funny. Yeah, that was a good one. The challenge with this, Dr. Orlando, is that you never know. I think this is the first year that we have seen so many litigation against the system coming from unions and what have you. And so that's what escalated our cost that we have never dealt with in a long time so much. It's been a lot this year. And we have to, since we're not legal people, we have to have the attorneys defending the system against some of these things. So I'm hoping that next year we'll see a reduction in grievances and litigation claims against the system, hopefully.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tracy.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to number 35, in agreement with Attorney Philpott for expulsions.
Yes, so this is our agreement with Martin Philpott, who provides us with legal services for our expulsions. And Tiffany works very closely with this attorney, along with all of our other administrators, has provided good service to the district in this regard. And there's not been any reservation with putting this through again.
May I comment here?
Dr. Tracy.
Mr. Lamb I thought it was Shipman, not Shipman, Bertram Moses that dealt with our CHRO complaints.
It's been combination of both.
But primarily Bertram Moses. Tiffany's
No,
on here. No.
been-
Bertram has some, and I think that there's been some that have also been through Shipman. It depends on the matter. And then Bertram also manages if there's OCR complaints, which we have 2 that have come in that are district complaints. They're not specific. But I think that as work has been coming in, depending on the expertise and the background, I think that they've been handled or by different matter. But CHRO, I think, has been handled by both Shipman and Bertram at this point.
All right.
So for the agreement with Attorney Philpott, since it also is including, is the CHRO separate from, I mean, that's separate from expulsions. So it's listed on the supporting documentation, but the title says it's an agreement for expulsions. Perhaps that should read an agreement for expulsions and CHRO or general legal, or just something more descriptive in the title, since it is more than just expulsions.
Yeah, he generally has not. I think it was an anomaly, Mr. Wilcox, where he's done things that have been outside of, for Mr. Philpott, outside of expulsions. But I agree, if we maybe add a broad sentence, then if we needed to use him, then we'll be able to do so.
All right, it's just a suggestion, since that's what the documentation says that he's been useful on, in addition to expulsions, if the intention is to continue.
we can make the appropriate adjustments.
Okay. Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes. This is written as a new agreement. And so this is not a renewal. The contract is just written new each year.
Yes.
Okay.
All professional services agreements are written that way.
Thank you.
And they're for a few different legal firms with differing levels of expertise in particular areas and different cost amounts. And if my understanding is correct, it's the, district folks are determining where to send something based on the need, as well as thinking about the cost. Is that generally how you manage this?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go and talk about number 36, an agreement with Morris, Duffy, Alonso, and Farley. Mr. Lamb.
Thank you. So this agreement with Morris, Duffy, Alonso, and Faley is for a pending litigation that we have in the New York court system that has not yet been resolved. So we leave this agreement as not to exceed $20,000 to be able to accommodate should that agreement or court case move forward. Attorney Lesiadis has more information on that if we need to ask questions related to the case.
All right, comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough?
It's technical on the action items page. I believe it says June 2023, and the ending should be June 2024, I think.
Yes.
You are correct.
Thank you. All right, hearing nothing else on this. Ms. Hannon, you have your hand up. Is that for this item or previous?
You're on mute.
You're muted. You're still muted. Okay, we'll move on. We'll go on to number 37, and a renewal of option 1 of 3 with the agreement with ABM. Mr. Lamb.
Thank you. So this is the first option or renewal with ABM Services, who was awarded the facility management contract for the district last year. Moving into the 23-24 year, the total amount of the contract will be for $1,847,093. This again is the first renewal of the contract. This was put out through RFP. ABM is committed to providing the New Haven Public School program and will implement the latest in facility management developments and techniques in a forward-thinking process that brings their vast experience and their client-based together with proven programs for building operations. ABM has done a very good job of advancing the program over the last year, and their stewardship report that has been presented over the last year has really shown a lot of the capabilities that they have in regard to what they bring to the table that is different from what we previously had with go-to services. So I'm very happy to bring this for renewal.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes. I think if I remember, one of the hopes with going with our new vendor was an increase in operational efficiencies that might eventually lead to decreased costs. But I think we've seen a number of change orders come through as, I don't know, maybe prior estimates didn't really capture maybe the need in maintenance and repairs that the district has needed. But two things. One question is whether or not you can speak to the operational efficiencies and just whether we are beginning to realize what we have hoped for. And also, if you have ideas for how you might be able to present to others that we are actually getting on a stronger foot in terms of our facilities and operations, in terms of what we understand needs to be done, and maybe even projections out as we're repairing things that have been delayed for years, but are actually getting repaired or replaced now.
So the facilities department has approximately 60 contracts that it manages. The vast majority of those contracts are renewals, just like this one is. And once a contract is put out for RFP and that RFP or bid is awarded, unless you rewrite the scope and rebid the entire bid, that amount has to stay as it is stipulated in the existing RFP. So a lot of our contracts we have been evaluating over the last year to determine, is the scope correct, which in the vast majority of them we're finding is not. We're looking at historical spend in each category area to see, are we consistently over what we're projecting? Are we consistently under? Where are we? And what the current conditions of the district are. So taking all those things into consideration to create a new program for the entire district moving forward. It's a lot to be able to say that they have not been able to put their arms around everything yet, because we are such a large district and there is such a disparity of some of the work that was not completed in years past, that we're looking to move forward with determining what the best way to prioritize that work is with our given resources.
Yeah, thank you. I think maybe in the new fiscal year or at some point, as summaries become clear of where the district is, and perhaps where we are making funding investments that will pay off long term. As it becomes clear, it might be nice to offer a summary for the board members and for the community, just to give kind of a broader picture and an overview, just what you named. It makes sense to me as you name it, and I recognize as individual finance meetings happen or individual approvals happen in the board, people aren't necessarily seeing the full picture, but they're just seeing one change and don't necessarily know how it's related to ongoing plan to get on track in terms of our facilities, our repairs, and just upholding maintenance. It may already exist in the buildings committee, but I think taking what you said and being able to summarize things as they become clear might be helpful. Because I have seen a change, a positive change under this new management. And I would like others to recognize and see that change and increase organization as well.
Thank you. We do have an end of the year report from ABM that will be posted for the board members to see. We'll post that as additional backup. And we also have the last stewardship report, which we'll be posting as well. I think that both of those will give good context into the volume of work that we're working through, as well as the content of that work.
That sounds great. Thank you.
I would also suggest we do have an annual look at the change orders in the fall. We tend to do that around October. I think it's October. And that also might be a good time to talk about some of the changes and how the things are moving forward for the contracting in general, so as to avoid the change orders and like you were saying, the work that's happening on really looking at how these things are done and scope of work and so on.
So one of our largest obstacles is as we identify more work, that work comes with a cost. So we look at our contracts as they currently are, and they do not accommodate what the current conditions of the district are.
So I think that insight and insight presented as a projection of what our cost may be in the next 2 years or 3 years or next year would could be received well and would be experienced as less of a surprise. But just being able to say, basically saying what you said, and then also projecting where our big expense categories might be and for what reason, I think can clarify why there are change orders, and then later on why there may be fewer change orders because the scope will match the bid in the next time we go out to take bids for a particular project.
All right. Thank you. If there's no more questions or comments on this, we'll go on and talk about number 38, which is the option number 1 of 3 with the agreement with SJ Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is, again, option 1 of 3 for SJ Services, Inc., who was awarded the part-time custodial contract last year. They have provided a good service to the district, working, with side by side with ABM and some of our longtime staff that ABM has retained. Lisa Hopkins, who has been a absolute godsend on the custodial side of the house for ABM, has really taken the horns with this group and helped to get them settled into their roles and start creating some training programs and working with on increasing communications with the school principals, identifying how we can increase the quality of service that's provided, looked at how we can create some better accountability and create some systems that will move toward a process of continuous improvement, as well as looking at other technologies such as inspection processes that are guided by QR codes and scanners, looking at different methodologies for training our staff that include training packets, which are look at different cleaning techniques that can be utilized to not only increase quality, but increase the way that the satisfaction that the workers have when they do the work, to know that we're taking care of our facilities in a different way, that gives them a skill that they can take with them if they choose to move on to another position somewhere. One of the interesting things that I found about this as I started looking through it, we did a staffing analysis with the SJ Services team to look at where we were pulling our staff from. And a vast majority of them are New Haven residents, but we also pull staff from as far away as Waterbury, which I found absolutely amazing that people are coming to New Haven from Waterbury to work for this group and service the city of New Haven and our school district. So I found that extraordinarily surprising and rewarding that staff would come from that distance. And hopefully we'll be able to draw more people from New Haven into the fold and be able to continue to provide good services.
All right, thank you. Comments or any other comments or questions related to this? I had none either. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move into contracts. The first of which is in a contract with Lindenmeyer Monroe, and this is Mr. Latella.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the contract, it's for the paper that we use for printing and also the special materials, the banner, the latex for the floor graphics, pretty much any of the other printed stuff that we produce throughout the year. It's a renewal for the contract of last year. There was a change order from the original sealed bid amount of $596,886 to around half of that. And I was going to keep it at the lower amount this year. So we were still underneath the lower amount because of the not to exceed contract.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? My only comment is there's typically two, if I remember right.
Yep,
Your
the other one
area.
is still out for sealed bid currently. So it
Okay,
hasn't-
so
yeah, so I'll see you guys again soon.
all right. All right, thank you very much. I still love this program that you manage.
Thank you. Still have to stop by when you get a chance. Right
I do. I need to stop by. I want to see the space. Dr. Yarborough?
This question, does this also operate as a business or learning center where community can order print services?
It's not really ordering print services. We do take community jobs as long as they're nonprofit to help the kids learn. So in order to train the students how to do the work that we need done, I try to take in a lot of nonprofit or any work that helps our community also. So we do a lot of printing that way.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And you also do various things for other city departments, correct? Sometimes in the past, at least, you like.
Yep. So whenever one of the departments needs something, they'll usually ask us first, and then they'll reimburse us for the materials. So any paper we use, like the health department, they'll end up paying back the city for. This way they get at a great cost, and then the kids are printing the stuff for their city.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hearing nothing else on this item, we'll go ahead and move on to contract number 2, which is award of a contract for the Hill House Auditorium roof replacement. But I think we've seen this before, but is Mr.
I don't
Finley-
see Frank. I can take this, I guess.
Okay.
So this is just a change in date for the contract. Initially, we were going to have this. The contract only went until June 30th of this year, but we're not able to get that project completed before July 1st. So we needed to change the dates.
Okay. My suggestion would be that Ms. DeMayo, and this is listed on the meeting for the board meeting, that's noted that this is a date change. If I remember correctly, this amount hasn't changed. It's still the work happening on the Hill House Auditorium, but it's change of.
Mr. Lamb, is this a second contract? You had one.
The other contract, it's not going to happen because no work is going to occur.
Okay.
So the contract will begin on July 1st.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Yarborough?
Yeah, so Mr. Wilcox, to your point, it appears to be a new contract and it's going to be changed I mean, is it going to be, can we amend it, or how is it going to come across?
Another thing could be that the previous one is rescinded, or
Yes.
the question is just going to come up that why are we doing this? We just did this like 3 weeks ago or whatever. So just something that notes that we're not putting a roof on top of the roof, that
Right,
it's not a second new roof. It's just
right.
So one of the things I need to find out, is this gonna be one entire year from July 1 to July 30, 2024?
No, the entire job would take maybe 2 months.
So then that we have to change some dates in there then, Tom, that's what they're trying to say. Because we have it as going from July 1st to June 30, 2024.
Well, the term of the contract really doesn't matter. Once the work is completed, the work is completed.
So nothing from the first one had started.
No, because we couldn't, there was no way to get the materials and everything on site. Frank, can you answer that more detail?
So the work hasn't started because we just received the PO last Thursday.
And there's no way possible for this work to be completed in a month.
No. So we have a pre-construction meeting this coming Friday. Materials will be ordered. Hopefully we'll start by the end of the month.
So what do we do with what was passed through from the board? We're gonna put through something to say that was rescinded and this is a new contract? Is that what we're doing? I'm just trying to get clarity.
What would be
If I may, normally you would cancel the original contract, which we don't usually do through the board, but we can make note of that and then put the new one through as a new contract. But you have to put somewhere, and the business office needs to be notified that the original contract has been
canceled. That's my point, yeah.
Right.
Dr. Yarbrough?
If we cancel the original contract, will you have the funds in time to purchase material if material needs to be purchased now in order to begin July?
So it's from the ESSER 2 funds? Keisha, could you answer? This is from the ESSER 3 carryover funds. So will it still be called ESSER 3 carryover?
This would be, yes, it still will be on ARP ESSER 3. The question I think that Dr. Yarborough just asked is a very valid question in materials. Are you ordering materials prior to July 1? Because if you're ordering materials prior to July 1, then you are not able to cancel the previous agreement or contract. And I think Frank and Tom will be able to know. You said that there's a purchase order going through now, so you are drawing down some of those funds. Am I correct?
So we haven't yet. So the PO was just issued on Thursday. Like I said, I have a pre-construction meeting with them this coming Friday. So I haven't allowed any spending yet. If it's easier for purchasing purposes, I can deny any spending until July 1st.
I would suggest, just based upon supply demand, that you continue with the purchase order that you currently have, the contract that's already gone through, so that you could go ahead and order the materials. So it does seem like there are two contracts based upon this conversation. One, that we thought maybe that we were going to get more work done than we were able to. However, we are still drawing down funds from that contract, but we'll also need the contract that cuts into the new fiscal year as well.
So my suggestion is, rather than doing this, continue to work this out in the meeting, is that staff work this out over the next couple days. Please notify the committee as to what the resolution is, And I'm fine voting in favor of this with the understanding that the other one is going to be negated or canceled or something, but sounds like there's a few things. The key thing is, if I remember correctly, it's we don't want to have something that is, and again, it might be that the date changes so that it's not for the entire fiscal year, but it might be, you know, June 1 to September 30 or something to, if I remember correctly from the previous conversation, it can cross a fiscal year possibly, but maybe not. It just seems like we need more information this week, and then we can have the discussion as to what it should look like on the agenda for the board. But as it is, we don't want it to look like we're putting two roofs on the same
Right.
building.
Right. So staff huddle tomorrow and get this done. Thank you.
Because we also don't want to lose the summer window for
Yes.
doing this, because this will, I don't know how much this space gets used during the summer, but my understanding is it's relatively heavily used during the school year, because the stage, I mean, there's a dance troupe, there's theater group, there's probably a couple other groups that want to use this space.
Frank and I will huddle with Linda and Keisha, and we'll get this correct.
Okay. But for tonight,
thank you.
We can pass this tonight, or we could pull it tonight. I don't particularly care which, because it can always go on the agenda. We discussed it, but it could go on the agenda saying there was no action from the committee because there were still some questions, but I don't want to hold this up because there's also accreditation. This will help with the accreditation
Yes.
issues with that school in term. I mean, this was, I think, cited on that. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else on this one, let's talk about the award of the contract to Connecticut Controls Corp. for HVAC.
Evening, everyone. Jamar from Facilities here. This contract renewal for Connecticut Controls. Connecticut Controls is an on-call HVAC controls and automation maintenance services contractor that we use throughout the year to maintain and adjust any of the controls for our HVAC systems. And this is a renewal for year 404. Any questions?
Yes, comments or questions from the committee? I had none on this. Let's go ahead and move on to number 4, contract with Custom Aquatics, CT Custom Aquatics. Also,
right.
Mr. Lane.
This is going to be a renewal as well for our aquatics company that takes care of our pools. There is going to be one correction. If you take a look at the operations memo, the total amount is $50,000, but somehow the submission for the board for today, it says $100,000. So the actual amount is $50,000. If we just take note of that. The paperwork that is attached to this does say $50,000, which is the correct amount. So this is a renewal for $50,000 for year 3 of 4 of our current on-call contract for pool services. Any questions?
All right, when we vote on this, it'll be at the 50,000 amount, not the 100,000. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes. Are all of our pools currently up and operating? Because I remember there were some that were out of mission, but are they back now? I'm just trying to think, do we need to accommodate the pools that are going to come back online? Or
So this is, we only have one pool online right now.
Okay.
So there's only one. So this is just for maintenance services right now. There are some projects that are in place for renovations of pool areas. Frank, do you have any information on which pools we have set up for fiscal year 24?
So yeah, if I can interrupt, we have 2 pools online right now. Career is online and Hill House is online. Martinez, that PO was received. The contract is in full effect. The dehumidification and pipings have been ordered. I'm told it's another additional 3 weeks before any of that equipment comes in, and then we're looking at probably about 6 to 8 weeks for installation. The Conti pool liner is back out currently to bid. That closes in, I think, 6 or 7 days. And unfortunately, the cross pool project is going to be pretty in-depth. There's a lot of issues there. We have the engineer and architect looking at that. And unfortunately, that probably will be closed down for the foreseeable future, maybe 6 months.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into the change orders. And just overall with the change orders, 2 things would be helpful. One is some of these amounts are relatively large. And if I remember correctly, this, while the board does not have a purchase order or change order policy, the city does in terms of that. So if these are large amounts, large percentage amounts, rather, if it could be mentioned that if it's going to be approvable. And also, I think it would also be helpful to know, if you have this information, if for these large ones, it's one thing if it's a change order to something that was on state contract. And it's another thing if it's a change order, I think, to something that went out to bid, because the question comes up, should something go back out to bid for the extra work? So if we could just kind of keep those 2 things in mind for the ones that are a large percentage, I would appreciate that. So we'll start with the first one, which is change order number 1 with Auto Parts Service Incorporated. Mr. Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. If this looks familiar, it's because it is coming back through for approval of change in language. I believe this was approved by the board back in March. We have 2 contractors that we normally use for maintenance of our fleet. One of those contractors had some trouble with the city, and we were unable to utilize them. And so we are looking to increase and submit a change order, or did submit a change order for increase of one particular contractor on their on-call contract for $11,000 and change. And they're going to defund the other vendor's account. So this had already gone through and was approved, but there was some questions about the language that was being put on the documentation by legal. They wanted us to change some of the language that was given to us, and we're submitting it back through for change or approval of that change.
Okay. So this is an additional change order. The amount isn't different, but some of the language changed?
That is correct.
Okay. And so they want the board to weigh in on or approve the new language?
That is correct.
It might be useful for this to note that somehow in the description when it goes before the board, so that it doesn't look like it should be change order number 2, or something like that. Ms. Hannans, you had a comment on this?
Unmute myself again. Yes, I guess there was a lot of back and forth discussion with this, and I thought when this was going to go through the board, we were going to note that there was another contract that was going to be decreased, and then this one was going to be increased. I thought the wording was going to be changed to reflect that. And then with the funding source should be 22-23, not 23-24.
Okay.
Because I thought at the end of the day, this was going to be a wash between 2 contracts.
That is correct. The funding source should be 22-23, but this is for services up until June 30th.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this item? Seeing nothing, we'll go ahead and move on to number 2, which is a change order to the contract with Cintas Corporation.
All right. Cintas Corporation does the cleaning of our mops and maps. That is wet mops, also dry mops, and our maps. The mops are serviced twice a month, and the mats are serviced once a month. This is a change order to take us through the end of the fiscal year for $30,000. Increasing the cost from $45,000 to $45,500, excuse me, to $75,500.
All right, so this was one of the ones I was mentioning in terms of this is a pretty large percentage increase. There is some rationale in the cover information in a helpful memo talking about how this was handled in previous years. My question is this going to be fine with city purchasing when this goes through?
Yes.
And how do we have an indication on that? I'm trying to learn
All
here.
these change orders have been vetted through city purchasing. Additionally, the Cintas is on state contract.
Okay.
There is history with this vendor where the spend was significantly higher, and I'm not sure if it was because of COVID or because of another reason, but this was reduced. The contract was reduced when it was put through last, and it would not cover us through the fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Just moving forward, for these, I find the cover memo that has a bit of an explanation to it. I find that very helpful. One thing I might add is that information moving forward of how this was originally done. Things that are on state contract are seen by some as different than the things that went out, but also, that information that purchasing has seen this or will approve this amount. So, any other comments or questions on this, Dr. Yarborough?
Yes. In the future, I mean, one request is for this to come sooner, because it seems like it could be projected sooner, but the way it reads or what it says in terms of the description is that to increase by 30,000 to cover services for MOPS until 6/30/23. It sounds like in this last month, we're going to spend $30,000 worth in services. Yeah, but I don't know if that's true or if we've already spent this money, but maybe if something like this can come out sooner, then it won't seem like such a huge change for the 1 month that's left. And the other piece is on the cover memo, where it talks about what was allocated annually last year or in previous years. It says 22,000 less than the 45,000, but I think it should be 22,000 more than the 45,500. But that's all.
All right. Thank you. Anything else on this item?
No.
We'll move on to number 3, which is a change order to the contract with Cohen's Key Shop for a whole $305.40.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Yes, the whole 300 and some odd change, we're looking to cover us to the end of the year, June 30th. Original price was $50,000 on the contract, and so we're asking for an additional $305.40 to take us through the end of the fiscal year.
Comments or questions? I had none either. Let's go ahead and talk about number 4, contract, change order number 2, the contract with Connecticut Controls. Also, Mr. Elaine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Connecticut Controls, again, as I stated earlier, just all of our HVAC controls. This is obviously, the second busiest time of the school year, first being the first part of the school year and now the end of the school year. And we're asking for an additional $30,000 to cover the labor charges and the materials charges that we're going to need over the next 20 some odd days to get the systems up and running that we can before June 30th.
All right, comments or questions? I had none either. Let's talk about number 5, which is change order number 2 with the contract with Connecticut Custom Aquatics.
All right. Again, Custom Aquatics takes care of our pools, the maintenance of our pools. There is going to be a modification here. If you take a look at page 2 of the contract change order, you'll see the amount of the change order is actually $300, not $3,000. So there is a typo on page 1. So we're requesting an additional $300 for specific pool maintenance chemicals that we have to get to use to take us through the end of the school year. So it is not $3,000, it is $300 for a total of $60,300.
All right. Well, when we vote to send this on, it'll be for that $300 amount, not the $3,000. Any comments or questions? Had none either. That's our second cheapest, no, that is our cheapest item on the agenda tonight. Going down to the next one, number 6, change order to number 1 with Encore Holdings.
All right, thank you. So Encore provides fire and safety inspections for all of our fire alarm systems. As we discussed earlier, there has been quite a bit that has not been maintained years prior. And as we're going through with our diligence and determining what needs to be serviced, we are finding that there are more and more things that were not being taken care of at the frequency that should have been taken care of in years past. And so obviously this is coming with a cost increase as we increase the services to these systems. So for this particular change order, we are asking for an additional $54,884.44 to take us through the end of the fiscal year.
All right. And do you recall, was this a state contract originally or is this a bid for this?
Let's see.
Recall.
Do not recall.
Okay.
Tom, do you recall if they're a state contractor?
I do not.
All right.
This is renewal 3 of 4.
Okay. So question
So
just might.
that would be a bid contract.
Got it. Thank you. So here Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. With this investment, are we actually fixing something around the alarms and services, or is it just inspection primarily?
No, this is we're doing fixes and complying with regulation.
Thank you.
Both, yes. Right, and of course, with fire safety systems, while repairs are important and while regulatory requirements are there for inspections, the inspections are there obviously to catch possible failures before they fail, right, or before we find them during an emergency, right? That's the idea, and that's why it's important for us to maintain our inspections at the frequency that's recommended and doing those repairs right away, because we don't want to wait until there's an event that happens to find out that something doesn't work.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about number 7, which is the change order number 1 to the contract with Cone Incorporated for elevators.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wilcox. So Cone Incorporated takes care of our elevator maintenance. I don't know if some of you may have heard that we've had several elevators that have been shut down by the inspection agency for the city. This had to do with 5-year inspections that were not completed after the last 5-year inspection was found to not be done. Again, this has to do with inspections and frequencies and not doing them in appropriate time in past years. And this increase right now is for us to get us up to where we need to be. We're asking for here an additional $35,182.16 to continue with inspections and services through the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. We'll talk about number 8, change order with contract with Leor Excavating.
All right. Leor Excavating does a lot of our asphalt repairs. This is an increase requested at the amount of $12,485.50. The increase has to do with a major project that had to do with the sinkhole repaired at the Hill House facility and 2 other play areas at Nathan Hale.
All right, comments or questions? I had none either. Number 9, change order number 3 to the contract with Sports Construction of Connecticut for the most expensive bleachers in the city.
That is correct. Thank you, Mr.
I'm sorry, that
McCarthy.
was editorial on my part.
That's all right. That's all right. All right. Sports Construction does services to our basketball hoops, our scoreboards, and obviously to services for our bleachers. So we have bleachers that when they have to be moved, it's not something that we can do in-house, right? So we have to hire people that know how to do this safely. So this increased for $19,935.79, which for future bleacher moves that are going to be needed before June 30th. This has to do with certain events that we're going to have in place coming up towards the end of the fiscal year.
And this is primarily for the field house bleachers, is that right? Or
That is correct.
Okay, yeah. All right, comments or questions? I had none. Let's talk about number 10, change order 1 with Tim's Enterprises.
Okay. This is for Tim's Enterprises, specifically for their flooring contract. Increase of $3,735.31 is being requested. This is specifically associated with the conference room at the Hill House and to cover any other repairs until June 30th, 2023.
Okay. Comments or questions? I had none. Last change order is with the contract with Hilliard.
All right. Hilliard provides our supplies for custodial services, our bags, our paper towel, toilet paper, things of that nature. Requesting a $20,000 increase to the contract or the agreement to take us until the end of the fiscal year. As I understand it, there was an increase in cost of dispensers that kind of dug into the budget here. Has to do with the dispensers being supplied freely at the beginning of our agreement with the supplier here, because it's part of the agreement that they supply us with free dispensers. But the number of broken, physically damaged dispensers had increased so much that they began to charge us for the replacement of them, and they began to dig into the price or dig into the fund for our custodial services. Obviously not at a point of $20,000, but it did reduce what we had on hand. And as we're looking at the events that we have for the rest of the fiscal year, including this coming week, we're requesting $20,000 to cover all those costs for the end of the year.
Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
The soap dispensers are being damaged at a rate that it significantly impacts our line item budget.
So that's my understanding, that the soap dispensers were provided for free, and as they fail, they will provide replacements. But
is it vandalism or are they just failing?
Dr. Tracy?
I must say, Dr. Yarbrough, they are the cheapest soap dispensers that I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
And so working around students, doesn't matter if yanking on them, they're going to even tear apart from the wall. They are very cheap.
Okay.
I'm just saying that as superintendent, having seen them myself, and Keisha's shaking her hand. Yes, they're not like the old time dispensers that you really have to really yank hard to get them broken. But these are really, really, really.
Okay. So no blame necessarily on our students.
Would blame them still, because they shouldn't have, thrown them off the wall, but I'm saying they were stronger. It would give them a lot more challenge to tear them apart.
Got it.
I think what Dr. Tracy is trying to say is that the choice of product may not be appropriate for the environment that it's placed in.
You've said it well. You said it.
Well, if it's going to start to cost us a lot of money, maybe we should rethink that product selection.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a reevaluation.
Yeah.
But right now we need bags and toilet paper. So what say you?
Okay. So let's go ahead and
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Lamb has something.
Just an item to add to this. There is a new mandate for by the state to put sanitary napkin dispensers in all of our bathrooms. We've started the process to do that, but we will need to purchase those items that will increase the cost of this contract as well. For next
Would that be
fiscal
for
year.
next year? That's,
Yes.
so, and we'll probably see that coming through next meeting or the one after, or
Yes.
one of these upcoming? Okay. All right.
Question.
Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, just on the previous item. So there was one change order, I think of 30,000, and it was written that the spend is actually going to be about $5,000 a month. I mean, $5,000 a week for the rest of the semester. And I made a comment about washing mats and us not spending $30,000 in 1 month to wash mats. But am I wrong? Is it actually going to? Is it going to cost that much in 1 month?
Which item is this?
Change order? Huh?
This was the change order for Cintas?
Yes.
Jamar, you're really going to have to speak to that. I don't have information on the volume that we're looking at.
If we take a look at the, the date that the memo was put together, it's backdated, right, to May 11th. And so what I'm going to say is that.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so I don't think it's 1 month. I think what we're looking at here is we have probably encumbered money that needs to be paid, and in addition to the next 20 some odd days that we're trying to get through the year.
Okay. So I was originally thinking, but okay, one double check. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's all, Mr. Wilcox. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think one thing it's that so the limits, the not to exceed amounts make it so that things can't be paid, but it also, if a vendor sits on an invoice or is a little slow in invoicing us and it's going through the system, it might not be seen how much something is adding up to. I think that was something I've heard in the past, that which is one of the reasons why some of these might kind of go, oh, wait a minute, we need to do a change order to this because it's getting up there if we're going to be able to finish the year.
Yes. And if I may, Mr. Wilcox, just very quickly, I don't want to hold up anybody's too much of your time. What I wanted you to know is, as facilities, as we're taking a look at the change orders that we've been doing throughout the year, and I'm fairly new, right? I'm about 9 to 10 weeks in. And as I'm looking at the history here and how we're managing the budgets and the change orders, it comes down to, understanding our budget, right? And how do we understand our spending? And so what I've implemented internally in facilities is a new process for managing our accruals or our encumbered money, along with invoice approval and also approval of work. So our accountant, Luis Perez, is now involved in the entire cycle, not just the invoice side, right? So there's the encumbered side and you have the invoice side. And so there was a little bit of a gap there. And that's why sometimes we had this issue where we waited till we got too close to the drawdown on a particular contract before we submitted the change order. So if there's a large amount of money in the contract that comes through in the last 30 days, it eats up the majority of the money. Now we're saying, oh my God, we have no more money. Now what? It's because we're looking at tracking being done by our accountant that doesn't include the encumbered money. And especially when you have more than one manager that dips into the same pot, you have to be able to account for that prior to it hitting the budget line, right? So we have new processes in place to capture it on both sides. So if it doesn't exist on the side where it's already been accounted for in terms of invoicing, it's being accounted for someplace else that involves the accountant as encumbered. So the total amount is still there, and it should be pretty true to the date, right? So I just wanted you to know that we look forward to handling this much more in a precise manner, right? In a timely manner going forth for fiscal year 24. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. All right, and the final action item is a purchase order with Curriculum Associates. Ms. Red-Hannons or Ms. Johnson?
So this purchase order covers our digital online resources for grades 6 to 8 in all of our schools, and you see the breakout of the cost per school.
All right. Comments or questions?
Just that I value the breakout of cost per school.
Thank you. Thank you.
Significant investment, but the breakout helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that's the end of the action items. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to send these on to the board with the caveat, with the reminder that some of the amounts were adjusted lower than what was listed on the agenda. So with those corrections noted, I move that we send to the full board with a recommendation to approve the 6 abstracts, 38 agreements, 4 contracts, 11 change orders, and 1 purchase order.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go ahead and take the vote. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. And so the motion passes. And that's also with the reminder that there was the question about the Hill House Auditorium roof that people are going to be getting back to us on with if something needs to change for what we just did. Moving into the discussion items, the first one is John C. Daniel School Security Issues. Board received a letter from various folks talking about some of the concerns that they have, and so thought we should talk about it here. So it was several things related to the parking lot and the grounds around the school and some of those security issues, understanding that these are nested issues in terms of the community. Some of the things are not in our responsibility or area of control, but some things are. So just wanted to see if we could get an update from folks. And I don't know, Mr. Lamb is
Dr. White, Chief should be in the waiting room.
He's coming in now.
Coming in. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
welcome, Chief Reddish.
Chief, if you're talking, we can't hear you. You will need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes, sir. Welcome.
It's nice to see you all. I just caught part of it as switching over. You were talking about security at John C. Daniels.
Yeah, so just we had a letter from several folks, including the building leader and building leaders, building steward, and the SPMT chair about some of their concerns around the grounds and the parking area, and just wanted to get an update on issues from your perspective as well as what's being looked at to help alleviate some of those.
Well, we're continuing to hire. Part of the problem is we can only have one security officer assigned to the school. And his job is mainly to secure the interior part of the schools as far as the children's safety and staff. He does make his rounds. He goes outside. He talks to those individuals who are out in those parking lots. He asks them to leave, some of which they do. They do leave, some just stay. It's more of a police matter when it's coming to the things that are going on outside. I mean, we're asking people to leave. They're refusing to leave. We're going into the parking lot, but we're dealing with people, you have to understand, we're dealing with people who have needles on their persons and other types of weapons. And we're asking an individual who's not trained to go and deal with someone who is not thinking rationally half the time. The police come, they leave, they move, and then they come back. Arrests have been made in the past. The court system is not keeping the individuals in jail. The problem is that it's Parks Department property, so it's literally public property that they're walking on. They're walking on the sidewalk, they're walking in the parking lot, they're walking through the parking lot, coming from various parts of the neighborhood. They're walking up to people and they're having conversations with our staff. They're scaring the staff and having the conversation. They're not threatening, but they're walking up and asking maybe questions to staff that they're just not used to having to deal with people who are addicted to certain things. So we're attempting to try to help alleviate the problem, but it's majority of it, it's a police matter. However, we can't police ourselves out of this situation. The police have, like I said, they have made arrests in the past, and that's not working. It's the location, it's the real estate. It's where we are. It's what we're located next to. And that location brings a lot of what we're talking about. If that location wasn't there, then I can say I won't say that it will be 100% solved, but it'll be a lot better than what's going on right now.
All right, anybody want to add anything? Dr. Tracy?
You're muted.
Okay, this is something that I know the mayor has been working on with his team also. They have, been involved in meetings in their own departments, trying to address this situation. Unless you have a police officer there 24/7, it's going to continue. And I'm not sure if they can afford to have an officer placed there 24/7. What's interesting to me is that not too far from there is a police substation, correct, Chief?
Yes.
Police substation, but these people are not fearful of anything. And one of the things that the school folks complain to us about, even fecal matter, in the school, on the school side and what have you, that their custodians have to contend with and clean up. These things have been going on for quite a while. I was director of John C. Daniels for a while, and these things are not new. They've been going on. But if that clinic is still there, it's very challenging as to what anyone can do. And I think the mayor is still working to see if they can coax the, I would say the folks to relocate, but it's their property. So that's a challenge, it's their property. And I'm not sure what else can be done to have this, but you just have to go on to the sidewalk there at certain times and see exactly what is going on. And many of these folks are not even New Haven folks. They're not even New Haven folks. They're coming out from other communities, coming to get their supplies to make themselves, I would say, according to the clinic, it's to help them to get better, whatever they're getting, but they'll take the bus there. And after they get their shots, then they are all over the place in that neighborhood. Unfortunately, the place was there before the school was built. And that's what they'll tell you. The place was there before the school was built there, but it's a matter of, I think that's more a city handling of what needs to happen. There's not much that the school system can do, but keep the inside of the school safe, and as much as possible, doing arrival and dismissal, keeping those, people as safe as possible. I see Viviana is there. Viviana wants to talk, because Viviana has been involved with this like every single month or week or what have you, that she gets inundated with the calls from the school or emails.
So thank you, Dr. Tracy. So we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where the Chief Jacobson, all the lieutenants and the assistant chiefs participated in a coffee conversation with parents. The parents were able to share the concerns as they did with you in the letter. Chief Jacobson made a commitment to put place until he looks at a long-term SRO or a police officer on a beat walking during dismissal and arrival every morning till the end of the school year. He's looking at summer school as well. Coupled with that, my understanding is, according to Chief Jacobson, that the mayor and the chief are in conversations with the clinic to move it. That won't be immediate, but they're making a little bit of headways with that conversation. At least that's what they told the parents. So that was a little assuring that there is a step into at least moving it, because before, my understanding is, like Dr. Tracy said, they were there before the school and there was no plans to move. The clinic does own the building, but they are in conversations of that. We have given our word to keep, like Dr. Tracy said, the school safe and our property clean. Yet the other piece where most of it happens is off grounds across the street, which belongs to the city. So I believe that there is a plan to have a meeting with the chief and the mayor's office and us in order to calibrate our efforts and make it better for the school, because the school can't do it alone. There's a lot of moving parts to to repeat what Chief said, to the real estate of the school. So we are aware, we're working diligently. But the school system is doing the best we can under our parameters. So is, I think, the police department. It's just, we just gotta collaborate together a little bit more to make it happen.
And
But
I
in the
must say,
meantime-
I
Go
must
ahead,
say
Dr.
too, that initially the problem that we had initially was the use of the park adjoining the school. And then what was done, they put up some fencing. I think since then they may have ripped out the fencing or removed it, but every time they removed the fence, it was, replaced. So that was one of the remedies that was put in place. But it seemed like now the folks are moving from there into the parking lot where the teachers park, and that's becoming more problematic. And I mean, it can be very scary to staff coming in and not knowing who is coming up on them, or leaving. And some of these staff members, do after school programs and have to leave and have to encounter these things. It's really not a safe situation, I must say.
Dr. Yarbrough.
Thank you for the updates and just to share about the terrain. So what can be done by next week and certainly by this summer to make this situation completely different?
I think if you ask the police chief to put a full-time police officer on grounds, which he said he doesn't have the funding. He told us he has over 100 and something vacancies. But the problem, the folks that unfortunately are around the school doing things that are illegal, they listen, but not quite to our security, but they do listen to the police, right? So it's something that the Port of it can't fix, because it's something that's happening in the community. We are doing the best we can. I think Chief Reddish has assigned permanently a security guard there. That school is never without a security guard. There's always administrators in the building. We keep all the doors closed and locked. Sometimes we result into indoor recess as an alternative, but the school system, we are doing the best we can, living in a neighborhood with those conditions. So changing the neighborhood may fix the problem tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do something because we're not moving the school, it sounds like, unless we want to move the school tomorrow. But we have to do something. Like, I don't think we can still ask, I don't think we can keep asking parents and families to I guess deal with something they've asked us to address and navigate. So, I mean, what is the price that it would cost to get a couple of more officers there? Maybe we pay overtime and they take shifts. I mean, if people can stand for road work being done, then maybe we can get some officers to do something else. I mean, my only challenge is that I understand that we don't own all the solution, and we don't, and there's jurisdiction between public, private, city, and the school district. But it's hard to say. You've been doing it, so I imagine it's hard to say to the staff, the students, and the families that we're working on it, but we don't have a solution. But we do want you to be in attendance and also come for summer programming.
Well, our solution was to have a meeting with Chief Jacobson and the other assistant chiefs to ask them for help. They arrived and their help was to assign somebody in the morning and in the afternoon. I don't know if it's a matter of a price. I think it's a matter of resources. According to him, he doesn't have enough officers to assign one permanently to the school. That is a conversation higher than us, hence why we want a conversation with the mayor sooner than later, because we don't control the police department, but the mayor may have some leeway on that, right? But I think that immediately that's the immediate plan, that there is from now till the end of the school year, a police officer there during arrival and dismissal, to ensure that our folks feel safe going to the parking lot, doing dismissal, doing busing and all that. During the school day, then we keep our students inside.
Yeah, that sounds like a good step. Do you think we need more than one person there? Dismissal and arrival? And is there a way we can engage the clinic team to be a part of the solution? Are they interested?
There's conversations of moving them. So they're interested in it.
Are they interested in coming outside the clinic and helping to engage their clients?
I have not had a conversation with them myself. Chief.
Dismissal and arrival?
Chief, I don't know if you.
I sat down a few years ago. We sat down with the clinic, people from the clinic, and they basically, that's when we were told to our faces that they were there first. That they were there first.
We were asking them to
and they actually hire a security officer for their side of the street. So I know when I was a patrol officer, they hired for patrol officers, but that person's only going to work their side of the street. Their security only works their side of the street. And what they do is they push everybody off of that property away. Everyone pushes away from their property. But I've been dealing with this since I was a patrol officer, and that was a long time ago. So this is a situation that has been for a long time. And I can't find out the prices of how much it would cost for an extra duty officer. It would be quite expensive. Quite expensive, because they have a 4-hour minimum. So that person would have to work for 4 hours, pay them, and then bring in somebody else to work another 4 hours for the latter part of the day.
And it can't be split.
You could
2 hours
split
one time or 2 hours.
It's a 4-hour minimum. So they could walk out there as soon as they step out of their vehicle and stand there, they get 4 hours minimum pay.
Which is part of the contract.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, at this point, we need to pay something short term at least.
Mr. Elaine, you had a comment?
Is the parking lot public or school property?
It belongs to the school. It belongs to the school.
School
Belongs to
property.
the school. Can we at least have a no loitering sign put up with possible fines that are associated with that? That if we start fining individuals, they'll find something else to be?
These people don't care about that.
Well, I mean,
I'm telling you,
I mean, you could post no trespassing. It just makes it easier for the police to make an arrest. However, when they go to court, it's going to be dismissed because they are sick. They are addicted to narcotics. So they're gonna dismiss it because it's a problem throughout society, and they're seen as being sick. They're not gonna put them in jail for that.
The signs have been posted, Mr. Aline. There are plenty of signs that go disregarded on a daily basis, but there are signs posted.
Understood. Thank you. And last question for Chief Radish, do they do patrols in the area?
Patrol officers do. Yeah, but the police officers, patrol. Do we do patrols?
No, the police. Do they do vehicle patrols in the area?
Yes.
Is it possible to request in just more patrols?
We have.
Oh, we have. Okay.
Yes.
I'll just say I did drive by the school Saturday morning and then also this morning, and there was a police officer parked out in front of the school both times. This morning I did see looked like school custodial employee who was starting to do grounds cleanup. I can't remember when it was, 7:30 this morning or whatever. So I mean, there is things that are happening as far as that goes. I guess just a couple things just to make sure that we're doing the things that we have control over, just if we are confident that the amount of cameras, lighting in the parking lot area and around the school building is sufficient, or should it be looked at? Also, I'm wondering, maybe some tree trimming and things like that for the lighting that is there. Just also make sure that there's sight lines available. I know one of the concerns in the past was vandalism to vehicles. Maybe if something's seen on camera, police can be called quicker, or evidence is being gathered. I don't know that that's a deterrent for everybody, but it might be a deterrent for some. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be done around there. And then my second related to that is, as these conversations continue to happen, are there some things that could happen? So for instance, one of the concerns are needles being discarded on school grounds and not being able to just send kids out to play in the fenced in area because there's concerns that there might be needles. I'm wondering, is that the kind of thing that sharps containers can be put out? Understanding that not everybody might use them, but some might. I'm just wondering if there's, this isn't the only place in the entire world or in the country that dealing with issues, the nested issues of addiction and homelessness and public spaces. So I'm wondering if those conversations are also happening. They also mentioned at one point that there was a portable restroom that then was removed, thinking it might alleviate some of the problem, but it also seems to have exacerbated the problems with people. If you don't have a place to go, it doesn't mean you don't have to go. So maybe exploring bringing that back, which I assume was a city thing. But.
Well, I must applaud our custodians because they do clean up. They do clean up and wash down the areas to make sure it's clean for the kids and staff coming in those areas. Because remember, it was a couple of years ago that there was a dead body found in the back section of the school, right? Apparently someone died of overdose and
behind the generator.
And the generator at the school. And then recently there was a shooting that caused a lockdown in the school. So it's much more than drugs happening in the area. A lot of activities going on in that area. So we're just, doing the best we can to keep our staff and students safe. And one of the things, Ms. Connor, that it's important that teachers know that they do not walk out by themselves to these areas, especially when the cops are gone, right? To make sure that they themselves are aware of their surroundings and stay protected. I know inside the school they're okay. It's a matter of when they go outside. And many of the major problems are in the morning arrival and then the afternoon dismissal. And we have those covered right now by police officer.
Well, I just would request if we could just have, from a facilities operation standpoint, just to confirm that cameras are in place where they need to be, that they're working, or a plan for adding additional cameras, making sure sight lines and, things are visible, tree trimming, shrub trimming, and then also if there's some areas that need to be fenced off, or fencing adjusted or adapted. Mr. Lamb?
I'll coordinate a walkthrough of the school with facilities and with security team and see what measures, if anything, we can do additional to what's already in place, and then verify operation of everything that is there.
I'm also wondering if on that team could be, somebody from the city side that works with folks dealing with addiction that might also be able to kind of, I know from folks I've known, family members that were dealing with addiction at one point. So somebody who has a lot of experience in that sees an area completely different than somebody that doesn't, in terms of, that's where I would go, that's where I would do this, or that's where, it just is something that is instructive to me driving through a city where somebody was commenting, well, this is this is where this would happen. It's like, you just know. And that is not something that perhaps people on this call might have as much experience with. It's maybe somebody on the city side or maybe even App Foundation folks could help, just kind of help us see the space to help with some of these solutions that can't fix all the problems, but we might be able to make it a little bit better. Okay. Anything else on this item? The only thing I'll add on the last item on our agenda, which is the Series 3000 policies, as you can see there, these are also the route safety policy, the route security policy, a couple other safety related ones. And that if people want to weigh in on these, I think that would be great. And we'll dig into these more in our next meeting to work through these. I'm also going to be asking, I think for the route safety and the route security policy, making sure we have other eyes on this from perhaps union leadership, just to see if there's some suggestions that could come from others. For some of those, there's one that there's a few changes, and I think we should give people a chance to weigh in on it. So, all right. Anything else on the agenda that we need to talk about? Or any other items? Okay. So
Now, in
that's,
terms of, it's not on the agenda, but it's still under facilities and operation. We are struggling, like how the weather changes, we're struggling with the HVAC systems in many of the schools. Every time that you have to do a switch over, we have a breakdown in the HVAC systems. So that's one of our challenging pieces right now as we move through.
okay. And just on those issues, are these older systems that are failing, or the newer ones? So these are the ones that are probably at the end of life cycle or near it.
They're all at end of life cycle, except for a couple of them. Many of
Right,
these
but
schools
I
are.
know we've
Yeah.
had some recent things go out to bid for doing some replacement or repairs.
Yeah.
Blanking.
So we have several large repairs in process, but we do also have several large systems that are at end of life that are having significant failure because of the startup for the season. And we're working with the facilities team, with our engineering partners, along with our on-call vendor, to be able to identify the fastest way to bring those systems that are offline back online.
So I think my suggestion would be, I think we have a citywide building stewardship committee meeting this coming Thursday, where some of these things are reported on. Maybe Mr. Lamb and it's Mr. Finelli that's often presenting in that meeting, just to kind of cover where some of those HVAC issues are, because I think some of them are tracked on the stewardship report already.
Yes.
But it might
We'll
need to be.
provide a full report for the committee to review.
And that report gets posted for those that can't attend that meeting. All right. Motion to adjourn. Moved. And I second it, so we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarborough?
Yeah.
I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank
Thank
you,
you, everyone.
Long meeting, but it was good. Thanks.